Hello everybody. Today we're going to be taking a shot at something different. We're going to be going over a PPL game and trying to do a bit of an analysis. And I don't know, because I see Jane do it a lot with Overwatch, this sort of stuff. So I feel like there's nothing that does it for Paladins. I know I'm not like exactly a PPL player, but I figured I'd give it a shot just for fun, I guess. So we're watching Envy versus Renegades, and Envy has traditionally been the better team. Renegades has really struggled with consistency, so
Honest. Really? Yeah.
we'll go
Really.
over the,
Truly. I'd love to know whose map pick this was actually here. If we could get that info,
I'd love
and
to
Envy
see
will
what
have
they
the
ban
first pick.
Drogas.
They will ban out the
Drogas
Drogos,
is a solid
which
ban,
of the
so it's
blasters,
Khan.
that definitely is the one that the Renegades will lean on. You'll see Chopper playing Drogos much more frequently than when you will the Bomb
Drogas
King.
is definitely a solid ban.
Renegades in an awkward spot.
So they're trying
they ban
to...
they'll take off the...
Let's pause this. Let's go over the bans. So Drogas, what you're trying to do with a Drogas ban is like, you're trying to set up your point fight a bit better. So with Drogas out of the picture, you can go for a solo tank a lot easier. It's also, Bright Marsh blasters are really good on Bright Marsh, especially Drogas, and you can hop up to the wall. Khan's a nice ban from Renegades. There's that insta pick is, it's so valuable. Terminus ban from Envy is a bit strange, to be completely honest. Usually you'd see something like, I don't know, what would be a solid ban here, maybe a Makoa. Terminus, I guess they're just trying to take the solo tank option away from Renegades. Maybe not, they like to run it. This kind of leaves Inara as the only super viable solo tank. I mean, you could still do Nando, I guess, if you really want to. Barrack is actually still open, but Inara on Bright Marsh is really solid here. So I honestly admit that I don't know what they're going for with the turn ban. Then Cassie is just broken, so she's strong in pretty much every scenario. So you got a lot more generic bans with Renegades, but let's see what Envy is going for with these bans.
Rock Monkey getting whatever he wants. I don't feel like Envy
should
can maybe
be interesting.
Just almost last pick that Bomb King.
It's interesting. What Envy,
Buck
and this is their map pick here, what Envy have been doing that a lot of other teams have kind of stopped doing in Europe is still playing and prioritizing Terminus. The bans of him, the picks of him, we've seen.
So with Drogas banned, Renegades are prioritizing that solid blaster, and then Makoa is just really good, especially with Drogas out of the way, because Drogas and Makoa have to play like a sort of dance around the alts, so Makoa first pick is really solid. I'm expecting Envy to pick up
Fernando
maybe
actually
Inara,
scooped up even Ash at times over Terminus at
this
this point. I don't know if this is just an EU
Janus
thing.
Is good, so yeah, I'd be really surprised if they didn't pick up Inara, or they pick up Shaolin.
If this is actually something.
So what they're definitely going for a solo tank here, because it's really hard to keep two tanks up with the Genos if you don't have Khan. It is possible, but it's usually worth it to go for a solo tank with Genos more often. It's strange that they pick it up this early though, because Makoa isn't the best solo tank. You usually want him to be, you want Makoa to be free to do whatever he wants, essentially. You want him to be able to dive the backline when he needs to peel, he can do that, and it's so much easier for him to do that when there's another tank with him. The Shaw pick is solid, it's another good DPS, but Envy could have maybe, picked up the Inara a lot earlier, because I don't know if Renegades would have picked up the Genos, just because their front line would have suffered because of that.
Realizing about his weakness.
Yeah,
so Renegades right here, they can go for a super beefy front line if they wanted, with something like a Maldamba and an Inara. So there's the Inara, so that takes it away from Envy. I think that's a really solid pick, and there's Maldamba. So, liking these predictions, eh? So with this, they're gonna, especially since Envy doesn't have a blaster as of right now, they have a Shaolin who can bust front lines pretty well, but Makoa Inara Damba is going to be so tanky on point. And Envy currently doesn't have anything to do with this. They also leave their last pick open for a counter pick. Whatever Envy picks, they can adapt to that, so that's really solid. They don't have to pick a healer last. So here we're probably going to see Envy take maybe a Barrack or a Nando.
I also think that Terminus has this, despite
interesting
being
into
pretty
a
much as tanky as they
BK
are at times,
and
it's
this much
really
CC.
weird,
and they do go for the
if he gets the
solo
right
Fernando.
reanimate at the right time, there's no way to actually
kind of
get
interesting.
around dying at a 99-99 situation. And Nara has to kind of still play.
So let's go over this draft. So Envy ended up with a pretty solid triple DPS. They didn't get the best front line with a solo Fernando with a Genos. That can work, but you're going to have the Eevee and the Buck creating a lot of pressure in the back line, because that is a way to deal with a beefy front line. If you take out the sustain, you cut the legs out from under it. So I guess that's what they're trying to do with this really aggressive comp, to be honest. And then from Renegade's side, you're going to be sending a Nara to point, and then the rest of it is going to be Makoa's going well side on like the side opposite from the water and trying to either get a pick or prevent his own team from being picked. Because, I mean, it's not like Damba and BK are hard, or sorry, it's not like they're easy to dive, right? I mean, Buck can dive pretty much anyone and get out alive. That's just how he is right now. But having the Makoa to peel for the backline is really solid. There's also a lot of pick potential for Renegades. Like 4 out of the 5 alts actually can just straight up break the Nando shield, and if he's low, he's not going to be able to be bursted up it by, like, say, if they had like a Theras or a Damba or, I don't know, a Pip or something. So Fernando for Envy is going to have to play this really slow and hope that one of the DPS gets a pick. Overall, I think that I prefer Renegade's composition here, just because I feel like double tank, especially on Brightmarsh, it's really solid, and they are reacting to what Envy has to do, but at the same time they can burst down the Nando so fast and take point control. But I mean, this is going to come down to execution, as it always does, but I think that Renegades have a bit easier of a composition to execute.
Still get around it. You can get your resilience on, you get your movable object, you know,
surviving
5 for
or getting
Fernando,
a
and
pick.
you're okay.
Alright, and now we're in game, so we've got everything's looking pretty standard. Anara is currently having Mother's Grace instead of Cripple, which is interesting since I think that Cripple does really well against what Envy has. But I mean, it is personal preference to an extent, so everything's looking pretty standard at this point.
Make sure that they're following up effectively, but
so we're probably going to be seeing Envy. Nando's probably going to be playing a bit passive around point and well side, which is on the left from his point of view. And the flanks are probably going to be trying to get pressure on a lot of different flanks. And a lot of different angles. So
he loves picks like this, so slamming a couple shots into Loki nice and early.
So far, though, this has been one of the picks I think that has been the most
creating
iffy for me
pressure
from
on backline. It's
every
always
time we've
nice.
seen this
Look at that,
event,
Makoa's already got
sometimes
to peel back.
spectacular, and sometimes it has just fallen flat
Nara
on
got
its
poked
face.
low
And so I'm
somehow,
curious to see
so
how Random Noob is going to be able to
notice
play it.
Renegade's
So far,
health bars
he's done
are
a
a
great
lot
job of just
lower.
staying alive
And
and
that's
zoned
nice
in the background, but that was a beautiful stun.
And Rubo's the first
I
one
know,
to
right?
go down on the opposite end.
See,
We
there's
see the
that
way
pick
Hero
on
and
the
everyone are
Fernando that's really
actually
going to hurt.
congested
And
to
now
the side of the
Anara's
objective
already
rather
on
than
point,
this
just
immediate direct
getting cap
rotation.
time.
Planting their Rockman
And
with the double kill.
Envy
Random
can't
with a
really
follow-up
contest
one as
that.
well, but Tolkien's making his
But
rotation.
Rockman
Hero
gets a
on the
pick under the
landing
other.
some shots
That's
into
the
Hero, who
fight
can
right
only
there.
last
I don't.
so long,
Okay,
and
let's go back. Let's see what happened. Because Damba went down and they were all grouped up in there. And I guess Damba just wasn't able to get enough healing off in enough time. Because look at their health bars. Shaolin gets a nice shot. Yeah, look at him. You can kind of see him hovering around. Like right there on the left, you can see how he's gonna get the kill on Damba. This is interesting. I would have expected either BK or Zen to be somewhere behind. Well, the Zen went down earlier, I guess, so Shaw just straight up won that fight and was able to come around. So Renegade started off really strong with the pick on the front line, and they did get, like you can see, they're at 42% right now, and Anara's rotating the point. They're doing the right thing. But losing Moontrapper, that is Moontrapper, right? On Zen, that's gonna start the snowball for Envy, and then with free DPS, they're probably going to be able to zone well after they clean up.
Congested to the side of the objective.
The Renegades were just never healthy enough, it seems like.
Planting their Rock Monkey with the double kill. Random Noob with a follow-up one as well.
He's
making his rotation here on the Buck, landing some shots into Hero, who can only last so long,
right, so
and eventually goes down with a shot of an arrow.
And Tolkien just showcased exactly what I was saying before the game. You get that right combo, a good headshot, swings a fight so heavily in your favor, and that was actually perfect because of the way Random Noob was positioned. You have this kind of, again, pincer. Everybody on Renegades full in for Reboot, and now they're all in one area. You just have to get a little bit of damage here, and you have someone who can splash it around. It's going to be set.
So you're probably going to see Genos rotate off point, and Renegades are just trying to bully themselves onto the point, which I think is solid.
The Rock Monkey, who was imperative to securing some of those kills before,
is still a lot lower, but Nando isn't really able to contest as much. He's having to back out. So, yeah, Nando's just getting bursted down. That's the issue for Envy right now. That's a huge pick onto the healer, but Rock Monkey's popping off in the backline again. That seems to be what's winning them these fights.
Being able to throw a bunch of shots, actually focusing, trying to find out where Viral is. They're looking
for both. Pick on the healer. That was
looking for the other. As Anara just
Rock Monkey is carrying this game. It feels like.
And I feel like
just
I
managing to get in the
backline, exactly when you can tell Envy have turned on that full-on serious.
And it should be on one of the DPS to either stick with the backline.
Right now,
so that these flanks can't happen.
Okay, Envy look like they really want to win.
It just seems like the Shaw is just winning, so that's just some mechanical play that you need to work on, I guess. It's a bit different since we don't have like all the different point of views or whatever, but we're going with what we have. So they're just setting up a zone. They don't. Envy doesn't have to take a fight right now, so like you can see they're not really going in too deep. Never mind. Random Noob going close to the wall there, but
what I'm really wondering is how often we're going
Envy only stopped pushing the payload right then, right? Like they were just getting full push, or free push rather.
This guy who's shooting faster or that guy who's shooting faster. Either way, you're going to be taking a lot more damage in that 1v1 than you really want. And if you can't choose on a single target, you're taking that extra damage from both of them at the same time, so you're going to get burned a little faster.
We're going to see, we do see the Damba for kill, that's nice.
Doesn't really accomplish too much.
For a moment's time, you saw them retreat, but then
and there you go. That's what should be happening. Rock Monkey tries to drive the backline, and then Zen or BK is there. But let's see what actually happened there. So Makoa's getting rushed.
Taking that extra damage from both of them
at
the same time, so you're
really hard. Big down ball.
Which makes it a harder decision, but that's going to be a
good
threat serve and trying to spread out.
Makoa gets picked
really
off.
Too much.
For a moment's time, you saw them retreat, but then back onto it. Viral.
I guess
Rock Monkey after he gets the kill onto
they're just not able to heal up all the damage that Envy is doing.
Losing 2, losing 3 for Renegades.
This is going to be a brutal stagger onto well, not too bad of a stagger onto Zen. Onto Inara is going to be bad. But yeah, that was just a nice pick onto the Makoa, grouping up like rushing like that, especially for Genos. That worked out really well. Just the extra damage. Renegades weren't able to heal all that up. And then Renegades is grouping up for one last fight. Trying to stop them from going in.
It's at that distance with the payload, you know that it's going
so
to be
we'll see how they take this point, because Rubu isn't going to be able to contest very well. Like you can see, like he's holding up the shield, but this is going to become worse as the game goes on. Like he's already, how is he's 1 HP? That can't happen. Like you need better, like you need to call out targets, like stuff like people escaping at 1 HP. That doesn't happen as often if you're calling out targets, but I mean, who knows? Maybe the reason that he was at 1 HP was because they were calling out targets. So they lose the front line. They are backing up. Never mind, Random Noob still
but in the end, Loki kills him for it. Major punishment.
I don't even know if Envy's going to try to contest this because they just lost. Yeah, they're not going to be able to. So that pick on to Random Noob was actually kind of big, but they just didn't have enough time left to fix the payload now.
And that was really good on Renegades.
They'll take that. They got the point. That's working out well for them.
You don't kill Rubu in that.
So what's going to happen this round for Renegades is that Moonchopper's got to protect Viral a bit better.
And it's all of a sudden, okay, wait, we can't push this the same way without that Fernando. We don't have the shield.
They do have ults now, which I does think that favors the Renegades because they can use an ult for a pick on Fernando and then send an artifact. Then they force Envy to come to them, and they can just play around that Inara and the fact that
effective way to do that.
Envy has to do something about that, while Renegades can just kind of sit there and wait.
Have a frontliner that could use his ultimate
so we'll see where they all set up.
With the team to try and allow that regrouping. So Renegades were able to hold.
They're diving
Envy,
pretty far.
They know not to use too many resources if it's not going
they're
to
sending Makoa and Xin main, which is solid, and then they're trying to protect their healer a bit better.
Renegades first one's onto the point, 21%.
And I will say with
they are getting kind of low, but
Random Noob, I think, was 4 and
they
3.
do have ults.
And it's one of those things that, again, you're not seeing a huge flashy play coming down from this Eevee, but what you are seeing is a lot of space being made, a lot of distraction factor that's allowing.
Because fights are won by either somebody popping off and making a great play, the other team making a mistake, are a really good plan. So this is probably a mistake from the Buck, because if you play Buck correctly, you should pretty much always be able to get out, like almost always, but obviously something goes wrong. So where is Buck at this point? Let's see, he's not on this screen. He's fighting the Makoa, and Makoa's ulted, you can see in the bottom right, so I guess Tulki thought that he could take that fight, but I mean, Makoa's ult is one of the, if not the strongest ults in the game, so I mean, you should win a fight where you use Makoa's ult. Let's see how Envy plays this, because they can... Okay, that's a second pick, because when you lose one like that, you can either group up, or you can say, okay, we need to get a pick now, like right now, and then the fight's even again, right? So it seemed like they did that, but then Rock Monkey got picked off. Where was Rock Monkey? Well, he's on well side with Nando, and he got picked off by Xin.
Play coming down from this Eevee, but
what you can see Zin's coming around, and it looks like Rock Monkey's going into planted, so that's going to be an easy target for Xin. Let's see if he goes for the ult. He did go for the ult, so Renegades is using their ults really well, and that, like, they used Makoa and Xin, and that's going to win them the fight. And then because they have the double tank, they have 4% on the point.
Nice and cozy on that board.
That's what Inara does. They're setting up. That's a nice wall.
Attempting to find their way into this access point. Nice
Heroes should still be standing on point.
From entering this passageway, but eventually goes down to King Bomb right across
it's a nice stun. Using ults. That was a BK ult that got countered out by Nando. Mr. Hayes is going to find the BK at the time and space. Lin is ulting somewhere. That's on the right side. And then you can see, look at where Envy is, though. They're completely surrounding the healer and tanks on point. So it's, especially with Makoa this low, it's not looking great for Renegades. They won that fight really cleanly, but the difference between this point fight and the last one is that Renegades couldn't get up a good zone. They didn't dismount the Nando, which was huge. He was able to get back to point, in touch, start the overtime. And then now Envy is using their own ults to get a pick. This is still winnable for Renegades, but Zin's going to have to pop off in the back line.
Looking for his opening as well. Seismic Crash slams right into the face of Rubu, who gets punished by Moonchopper, but it is a 3-for-2 trade so far.
Mr. Hayes is still alive, never mind. And then it's only Rock Monkey. So yeah, they were just able to flank around and
on Renegades, which is going
just
to give them a little
corner
bit of time.
them
That's 99%.
almost on the point.
So
because they didn't win that cleanly enough, they're not able to get up a zone. Makoa's going to be able to touch, I think.
But I need to see how they can handle Renegades.
So Renegades is going to have one more shot at this, but it's going to be pretty rushed. So this is a mistake by Renegades right here. I mean, I guess Envy is at 87%, so they are being kind of rushed. But both tanks going in one side like this is not usually what you want to do. Usually you want to have Makoa coming around where Random Noob is right now. Anyhow, so you want Makoa coming around this right side because Inara can contest point by herself, especially with a Dama behind her. And Makoa can... You always want as many angles on your opponent as possible without, stretching yourself out too thin. And from this angle, let's say the Dama was back left over here. You'd be able to see the Inara on point, the Koa on this side, and then he'd be pretty safe too because he's far back. Then you just have more angles to look at because right now, look at where Renegades are, right? They're all on point on the tree side. So Envy can just look in this one direction and shoot, and then hold LMB, and then that's all they really need to worry about rather than, okay, there's a Makoa in our back line. We gotta have our tank, tank on point. Some people have to peel back, and there's all of Envy's pressure, all of his Genos boosted damage can all go in one direction. And again, this is, I mean, maybe they just want to send the tanks to point and just volley them off. But I feel like Inara can do that against a Nando just by herself. I mean, again, especially with the Damba. Damba does have his ult, so maybe he can get a pick here if, you know, if it starts going against the Inara. But Renegades grouping up like this with both tanks is, I'd call that a mistake. We'll see if it works out.
Capture and be one and done after that fight. There's time for another one. Ice Storm going into the Ice Block right into the center of it. Dread Serpent in the middle of all the action. An attempted rotation around for Random Noob.
Nice.
Finds the enemy healer.
Viral,
but Viral's the one to get a kill.
I didn't even see how it happened there. So, okay, let's look at Nando, because he was the first kill in this fight, I think.
Time for another one.
So he got ulted by Damba. So that's what I'm talking about with Renegades, with all these CC ults. Even though, you know, maybe the Nando probably actually does have CC, 70% CC reduction in his loadout, it's still gonna break the shield. Because usually when you're playing Nando, right, you're fighting and then you're like, okay, I'm getting low. So you pop the shield and you start looking at your healer and just like, okay, let me get back into this fight. But with all this CC, you put up the shield, say, hey, I need some help, and then you're dead because your shield's down, you're low HP, and everybody's looking at you and probably calling out Nando, Nando, Nando in the comms. That's a good use of the ults by Renegades. That's something that happens in the draft. It's really nice. This is maybe a reason why Barrack might have been a bit better, but I mean, then you would have even less contest against Makoa and Inara. I think that Envy really messed up in the draft by letting Renegades get Makoa and Inara. Maybe they could have taken Inara over the Genos earlier. Nando does get picked off by the Damba ult. Random Noob's doing fine in the backline, diving the Damba, creating pressure. That's fine.
Ice block right into the center of it. Dread Serpent
is Damba's kind of all alone back here, though. I suppose he's got people with him, but like the way that Random Noob was just able to dive on that so quick is, and Viral's at, like, you know, I think he goes down here actually. But I mean, this is a positioning thing, and you know, maybe somebody, I guess they were fighting the Eevee, and it's hard to nitpick like this, just because a point fight is so chaotic and it does end up working out. But it's just interesting to see, like, maybe if Viral had been playing farther back, you could have been a bit more safe, but then he wouldn't have been able to get the Damba ult off on the Nando. So I mean, it's a bit more aggressive, I think, but I mean, at that time, everybody's just looking at the point, even in the PPL, it gets chaotic. I don't know how he got a pick off on the Talkie, though, actually. Hold up, let's see if we can't see that. He's, like, flying around. Where is Talkie? So he's not diving the Damba, so I guess, oh, he must have just got a pick on point. So maybe Buck could have been diving with the Eevee, is something that they could have done, killed the Damba a lot quicker, and then jumped on the BK.
Middle of all the action, an attempted rotation around for Random Noob, finds the enemy healer, but Viral's the one to get a kill onto Talkie.
So again, this is where the double tank
still trying to hold it down for Envy, but there's only one alive, and Ruger's not going to make it in time, so Renegades, they capture this point.
And now Random Noob looking to be the next one to go down. And honestly, I think a lot of that, it's spread out through all of Renegades, but I think Viral staying alive gives them that one little bump. Because
that was nicely played by Renegades using their ults.
He dashes into his team turnaround, manages to get a kill, and he keeps...
Something that's interesting here, looking at what the Nando has picked up, he's picked up Cauterize, and that tells me that he doesn't have Brand in his loadout. So with Nando, you can get both Cauterize and Resilience in your loadout if you use the right cards. So what this is telling me is that I don't even know what he'd have instead. Like, he's probably got the cooldown on Fireball at level, I don't know, 3 maybe is the lowest that I've seen it. I like to have it at 5. But the point is that he can't have Rejuvenate as high as he might like to, especially considering he's going solo tank. So, you know, maybe that's something that could be changed. You can have Rejuvenate at a higher level, and that's just lets you solo tank better, especially with a Genos pocket. That's just an interesting thing that you can kind of infer from the items.
So there's not as much shakiness, I think,
Renegades is just getting free push, even though they are kind of shooting at each other. Envy isn't really contesting the point too much.
He tried so
it's hard to.
He got so far, but in the end, it didn't even
matter. So Renegades is just getting poked out at this point. They're probably making a call to group up right now. You can see nobody's really doing much. But that's a nice... Okay, let's see how that happened.
Renegades haven't lost
gotta pick onto
any of their traction.
the Bomb King. The Bomb King, let's look at his health. He's fitting
Renegades
up here.
lost
It looks like he just got right
here.
click planted,
Loki
so
does go
that
down
was just a
as
nice
well,
play
and
by
of course, as soon as
Rock
I say
Monkey.
that, here's Tolki and friends
And
just
then
blasting everybody away. Oh,
nice
you said
stagger
that
onto
they're
the
still going with this payload? You're about to say
So
they're at
it's
50%.
kind of hard
Well,
to
here
slow
I
her
am
down
with
too.
my
Oh my
team to
gosh,
just go and
Tolki,
punish him
that's
for
just
it,
cruel.
stagger out Hero after
But the way that
completely
you
separating him from
avoid
the
those
payload,
sorts
and
of
now
team
Envy are back
wipes
in this.
is,
I really want a
I
social
mean,
comic from Team Envy
taking less
that
damage
is
is
like
always
Tolkien and
nice.
Friends. Like just the
You know,
images of
making
Tolkien
better
and
use
Friends.
of like your shield and your
I would
wallet
read that comic
for
every
the
day.
Inara
It'd
and
be
the
a little
Makoa.
daily comic of what they do in the realm.
But
Oh, man, that's
I mean,
really
it's hard
Oh, this is gonna
to
kill me.
like. That's an interesting photo. But they were all just so low. That's only gonna get worse as Cauterize comes online. So what the Renegades need to do is they need more pressure, because even if the Zin's in the backline diving somebody, then somebody's got to come back for that, because the Genos is gonna die to the Zin. So that's even if the Genos isn't even if the Zin isn't getting a kill, maybe the Buck comes back or the Shaw comes back, and that's so much damage off the front lines that maybe Viral can heal them back up and they don't lose that fight. I don't know, it's kind of tough. Like, you can see they made the call pretty early on that they were getting really low. And I mean, it's weird that they were all grouped up like that and Envy was able to dive them so successfully. But I guess that's just because they got out-poked, which is something that, I mean, that's just the strength of Genos.
There's some kind of sure that this is exactly like basically
Trouble here. That's a nice pick. That's just a misplay from Random Noob, I think. Overextending. So now Envy's trying to group up. Nando should die here. He's way too far.
After Envy had made that major
This is
play,
going to be
Renegades
staggered
have
with the
had
EV, so like,
difficult
look at
time
these
coming
respawn
back into
timers.
it. Using the Spite right now with that attempt.
Renegades are still pretty full
Two in
health.
favor,
This is
three in
getting
favor of
bad.
Renegades, and finally causing this
So
opening.
this is going to be
We
a
saw it
team
collapse
wipe.
completely,
Random
circling
Noobs
around
are...
Rock
And not
sorry.
having to use
I
too
still don't
much
know who the
other
EV
than
is.
the Spite. Really just a lot of in-hands
Just
and a
gonna
lot
throw
of
him to base.
well-placed shots.
Envy
from
might have
Renegades, giving
2
them
more
they still have
fights here
4
if the
ults
first one
available.
goes quick,
And honestly,
but
you use one of those, right?
Renegades
And that could give
is
you a
just,
full
they gotta make
closure
the
on this point.
decision
19 seconds. So
whether
you
it's
do-
worth it to use
you
ult
are
here or not,
looking at
because
having to
the
use one,
only
I would
reason
say,
they won
but
the point
if you
fight
try
last
to get away
time
without it, it just depends
was
on
because
how
they
hard
used
they really
ults.
want to go
So
on day one.
it's a tough
And
decision.
right now, Random Noob taking
I think I've ever
advantage of
seen
this
somebody
little
from
nice
PPL
platform
actually use
on the
that flank.
outside. Gives
That's
you a bit of
interesting.
angle where you can escape here and
Renegades
there,
is grouping
but
up so
Renegades,
much and they're all
they
so
don't want to
low.
step too far from the objective, and because
They
that,
just got
they're taking a
out-poked.
lot of damage initially. Loki and
That's
Hero
just
direct
Genos.
shots right to their face.
And Envy
And
just,
now there's
they use
only
Buck
a
Wild, but
late
like,
Moonchopper.
that's Buck
So
Wild. That's fine.
Envy, knowing exactly where they had to be with that hope of pushing
So
that through, they
now
didn't
it's
even
Envy that
to
have
do
to
too much, but
adapt.
just focus in that specific area.
Yeah, look
For
at all
me,
these low healths just cleaning
The
up.
entire fight Envy has
So
is a lot of damage
what
from Shot,
Envy
a lot of
has
damage
to
from
do
Buck, even
now
a lot of damage coming
is,
from Genos. But it's all set up
I mean, the
from
reason
fact
that they
we see
lost
Random
that
Noob
fight
go into the back line.
was
It's just
because
such a
Rubu
big
got picked
distraction,
off
and he causes
when he was low
someone
health.
to look
So
at either one or two people. In that
they
case,
have
in that
to,
replay right there, you see him go onto the back.
it's
he's
up to the
shooting at you,
DPS,
but then
honestly.
Viral
They have
turns to
to
heal
provide
Hero.
enough
So
pressure
everyone, like, you have
for
2 members that are now
to be able
looking
to,
away
okay. Rock Monkey's the Shaw, Random Noob's the EV. Okay, I'm gonna remember that now. Yeah, Envy. They have to
Tolki, who's
just
getting a
more
bunch of
pressure
free
in the back
shots
line.
now,
Maybe
and
the
that
EV and the
is
Buck
the
can
play
work
that
together as a
got
duo
them the
more
first point,
often.
it got him that
And then
fight, it got him the very
Renegades,
last fight that got the
they
defense.
have to
His
try to
positioning has
sustain better.
impacted so
You see they're
much,
picking up
and it's just a
Rejuvenate, so
distraction factor.
Well, we got
that's
to
always
see
helpful.
that set up right off the bat.
Let's look at positioning here. They're doing the exact same thing. They're sending Makoa and Zin to point, and everybody else, the Namba, BK, and Inara, they're sending those well side. And Envy's reacting to this by, well, first of all, you can look where Rubu is positioning. If he was on playing double tank, I could guarantee you he'd be fighting the Makoa on point right now. But Envy is just kind of letting Renegades hold position on well, which is, I mean, looking at Renegade's lineup, it's honestly not too big of a deal. Like, if they had something like a Shaw on their side, then a Shaw just free firing from well is very bad. Renegades, this comp wants to get up in your face, so they can just hold this point, but then they've got to watch out for Random Noob flanking on the EV. But because they're playing so far back from that flank route, then they can probably see it coming, and BK can peel from Aldampa. We'll see how this pays off, because Renegades, as it stands, are winning this fight. They still have 4 ults, which is pretty nice, and then 4 ults on both sides, but Renegades are definitely more impactful.
Monkey and Rock Monkey on that high ground outside the spawn area, and then Random Noob said, hold up guys, I'm gonna take a little trip real quick, and you just stay here and do your thing. And right now, here's another.
Did that all get reflected? Hold up. Did that happen?
Guys, I'm gonna take a little trip.
First of all, how did Xin must have rotated back. Somebody saw the Eevee and then called for it. Xin rotated back to protect his backline.
Real quick,
and then
and you just stay
nice
here and do your
bombs
thing.
from
And right now, here's another trip for
DK,
him.
and then yeah, he did
of
reflect that.
When he goes for
That's
that
actually
ice storm,
insane.
It's just been a great reaction time from Renegades.
Then, look at, that's exactly what I'm talking about right there. Nando gets pushed low.
A lot of times when he goes for that ice storm, it's just been a great reaction time from Renegades.
And they get the pick.
Actually gonna get burnt.
Okay, well, they don't get the pick yet, but like if he doesn't die, then Renegades, something's wrong.
Rubu barely getting that immortal off. Click, gonna be able to respond
there it goes.
though with the.
Renegades will take that trade any day because now Envy doesn't have frontline and they can get point control. They still have 2 ults in the Inara and BK, and Envy have 2? I don't know. Shaw's gonna have to pull off a miracle somewhere.
Ancient Rage, and it's looking like he might find 2.
Keep himself alive so far and swinging.
Renegades have won this fight clean enough so they can zone up like this.
Eliminated on the side of Renegades.
So this is solid.
Able to get to the safety on the high ground and rotate.
And they're already at a really high percent just
strong,
because
90% for their team.
Just because Inara, and then a nice trade over here on one side.
And the
Renegades are going to take it, so
just cancel each other out.
Again,
Renegades get another capture.
Take on
that
the
was
Nando.
a
That's
much cleaner fight. And again, you get rid of Random Noob very early on. The ice storm didn't go off. They had that small post-fire effect where it's just, okay, you're in your animation. He wasn't able to get any shots. Meanwhile, Zen just swinging for the fences, able to knock him down. And now this point,
trying to set up positions. They're getting low again.
Themselves one up, which would be a very comfortable lead.
And did I see Envy's going on the flank?
Have a composition that is very happy to capture.
That's a pick. They're all low again. Envy's got this. So
go in your favor with all of those
again, just
on both sides. Then
the flank's doing flanking things.
Go on this initial push. Tolkien gets another one onto Moonchopper, a double kill.
So the front line was able to put them low enough, and then Eevee and Buck dived in for the kills. That's part of the strength of Genos.
I think Tolkien's ability
also the strength of triple DPS. Genos kind of helps
having a very good blaster that you can rely on to play. So Random Noob, you have someone with incredible aim in Rock Monkey, and then someone who can play those picks that the other team can play. And that is the perfect filler spot.
Together,
and he's been able to do it so well. There are moments where it's like if Tolkien isn't doing well, you can feel the team not necessarily doing poorly, but they're not firing off the way they would.
Back
right
up for
now,
next fight.
Envy looks like an incredible beast when he's able to find these shots.
In this moment's time,
it's actually not even think about it. It's actually huge that Renegades take this because if they were on defense, Envy could force them to have to use ults, and their ults have been winning the point fights. But now that they've captured the payload, it's completely up to them whether they want to use ults. And I would hope that somebody on Renegades, probably the Maldamba, because the healer is usually shot caller, is calling out that they've been winning these point fights because of their ults and saying, you know, don't use any unless we're millimeters away from converting it and just winning the game straight up. No ults. So, but Envy can have ults forced out of them because they have to defend or else they lose. So this is Renegades is in a really solid spot right now.
Even though it still ended up being a defense for Team Envy, they had put themselves in a good position to.
Nando can't contest point. Like this is why you want double tank usually, because Nando, I mean, sure he did get forced out, but that's just because Envy's looking a bit scattered right here. Like Nando was over here contesting tree. For some reason they had Buck on point, and then Eevee still hasn't got the memo that they're falling back. So Envy's looking a bit scattered, able to push Nando down. So now Envy's going to be up in a small group, so if they can, this Eevee is really isolated. If she doesn't have many cooldowns, they can turn on her and get a kill and then a pick and then move from there and maybe get a snowball started. But this is where you want double tank, because right now the Inara for Renegades is just getting free push, so usually you'd have like, say they picked up, I don't know, a Barrack, they'd have a Barrack contesting point and then Nando could contest tree side. This positioning is a bit strange. Ideally, you'd want Talkie up here with Rubu, the Buck, and then you'd have the Eevee doing their own thing because that's usually how Eevee operates. So you'd have the healer and one of the tanks on point, and then a tank and a DPS on tree side, and then Buck and Talkie on the side. And then Rubu would be the tank, and then Eevee would be the healer. So this is where you want double tank. This is why 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 you want double tank you're able to hold a lot more angles from that way, but I mean, triple DPS is a lot harder to pull off than double tank.
But too much pressure from the opposition.
They are looking for the Eevee. Bombas rotated to Dox.
He put a wall to blockade one area and Moonchoppers on the other. Time and space
again, using ult because he can build them back up. Renegades grouping up again. Kliku got picked. Let's see how that happened. Where was Kliku? Kliku really low on tree side and got picked up by the flanks. Yeah, so the flanks are playing to get more together actually. And then this should just be a reset for Renegades.
Loki though
That's
gonna be the one who ends up falling.
Right
Kliki's alive, but he's pretty far away. 30 seconds, he'll still have plenty of time to get there. Actually, might even be fun to kill if Random Noob takes a couple of bad steps there, but 30 seconds
so Renegades, this is going to be, they're going to have to push
overtime,
this in overtime.
But it's not going to be the most
if they want to
comfortable spot.
I feel like that was such a funny
moment. I don't know if
for
Genesis
Bomb
is
King to
going to
be
be able
in
to
the
get
corner
his
and
ult
think,
back in
well,
time.
there's
Actually,
nothing else for me to do but try and just slam some damage into them, see what happens.
Standing, but that's fine because he's
Tolkien
Zen.
right here, able to shoot like fish in a barrel, and no kills off
See,
of
either the Zen has
but
picked up
also
Rejuvenate
no
actually.
resistance from the enemy team.
A lot of damage.
Renegades starting to move in. Looking for a pick. Nanda's low, but they're not going to use any ults because they want to save them for the point fight. They're not close enough to the point where they can use ults.
At least getting overtime, but you have 30 or 60% about that you have to push this
entire
Nanda's. He's on tree side. Difficult, especially since last time it was a lot closer. Hero's about to go down, so not as much
that's probably it.
Another situation where Loki,
yeah, so I mean, Inara had to stay on point. It's not like she couldn't, so she just got burned down by Envy. I think that was just some good shot calling.
And Envy defend, so it comes down to 1 point for game.
When you can give up space like that with triple tank, it becomes so much easier.
That leans a little bit in favor of Renegades. Again, it's only 2/3 that they've been able to capture out of the 3 points, but still, it's been impressive from them. As you can see, Tolkien getting a triple right there, and that, I think, is the kind of performance you need at the beginning to kind of kick off.
So now it's Envy that needs to make an adaptation. Rock Monkey is popping off, isn't he? 19 and 4.
Have been taking as many kills as they possibly can.
Viral isn't having a great game. Usually you have your support having less deaths than the rest of the team, but I mean, look at that healing though, so I can't really say anything too badly. I'm curious whether Renegades will do the same thing, where they send the Colons point and everybody else around, because I mean it's been working for them this time, but Envy might have picked up on that, and we'll see what they do. It's the exact same thing, except they've got Zen watching for the flank on Eevee. And if the rest of Renegades actually flank around, or are they just sitting there?
Way out in the front of the charts, as you expect with the way he's been poking. I do love Tolkien's ability.
They did go for the flank, so this Zen and Mako are really vulnerable right now. But
there's a Loki immediately in his face.
Loki has no cooldowns. There we go. So that was just a mistake by Tolkien and a nice rotation by Renegades. I'm not really sure what they were going for. They were going very aggressive. They were going for a really large flank. But I do like that adaptation of sending Zin to Doc's side to try to catch the Eevee flank. And she did go for it. So that was a nice call by Renegades. Tolkien messed up and then Renegades were able to capitalize. So that was just a mistake that Renegades just couldn't
to come as the Dread Serpent adds a bit of separation. And a 66% for Renegades.
Good wormholes.
He's on a good spot right here.
And doing whatever they can, but honestly, Renegades are running the show right now. Random Noob doing whatever he can. It just doesn't seem to be enough.
Viral escape is
trying to make their way back into it, but there's a seismic crash and through time and space. A King Bomb rolling right down the middle, passes his buddy to find the enemy healer, gets the immediate kill onto.
Did they even have to use any ults for that? They used Mikola and Inara, but like.
For Renegades.
Just look at these ults. Because Envy still has 5. They haven't used anything, and it's the last point fight, and Renegades are climbing up to 80%. That's like you want to use like Eevee's Ice Storm for like a pick on like even something safe like the I don't know, the Beefcake maybe. And that's not safe, but it's still better than just holding ults for an entire point fight. In Renegades, they are using their ults. Sins, maybe getting a pick. Oh, we tried to ult.
Renegades are running the show right now. Random Noob doing whatever he can.
It's a beautiful pick. Shaw is ulting. He's trying to get into the backline. Envy is... I don't know why the Nand was ulting. I guess he was trying to save Random Noob, but I'm not honestly sure what that ult was for. Maybe I'd be surprised if it was a misclick. It's not really doing anything for him right now. Viral escapes with a sliver of health, which is you know, not great. Good peel from Renegades.
It just doesn't seem to be
enough.
enough.
Point.
And trying to make their way back into it, but there's a side.
But he gets cleaned up after his Immortal. I don't know how Rock Monkey is being shot, but that's just good play from Leonardo, I guess, knowing where he goes during stealth.
Crash and through time and space, a King Bomb rolling right down the middle, passes his buddy
to
find the enemy healer, gets the immediate kill onto Mr. Hayes, and now there is only one alive on Envy. Nothing that they can do about it, and Renegades walk
nice
away
adaptation
with game number 1.
Renegades to send this in to Dockside to watch for the EV flank. Really good peel for their Maldonado in the backline. They were able to catch out Random Noob on the EV, and then that just started everything. Envy, I don't want to say they lost it in the draft. They did bring it to free, and they did capture a point, but that was with no ults. Like, that was really good drafting by Renegades. I don't think I'm going to go over the rest of the games right now, just because my voice is about to give out, and I don't feel like killing my voice. So, but that was really well played by Renegades. So, in conclusion, we got some good drafting, good adaptation on the fly, and then some really nice peel for your healers. As somebody who is a support main, I can tell you I really appreciate that. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this. So I don't know. I'll try uploading this and see if people like it, but I don't know. We'll see, I guess. So, I'll see you guys next time.